Imagine a time, if you will, when an empire's powerful leader wasn't just governing, but actively trying to weave together different religions into one single syncretic faith.
Right. Blurring the lines of distinct identities.
Exactly. Now, what happens when, amidst all this, a formidable voice rises up? Someone challenging this blend and passionately advocating for a return to, well, traditional Orthodox beliefs.
It's a truly pivotal historical moment
Yeah.
and a fascinating scenario. A period of intense cultural and religious fusion, almost like a melting pot,
Hmm.
but with very strong reactions from those who felt their identity was being, fundamentally diluted.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're diving into today for you. You've asked us to explore the life and incredible influence of Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi.
An Indian Islamic scholar and Sufi master,
Yeah.
16th and 17th centuries.
Right. We've got a fantastic stack of sources for this deep dive, packed with details on his biography, his powerful opposition to Emperor Akbar's eclectic religious policies.
And his lasting legacy, yeah. Shaping Muslim identity and thought across the Indian subcontinent. It's quite a story.
It really is. Our mission today is to truly unpack how Sirhindi, often revered as the reviver of the second millennium,
Mujadidi al-Fithani.
how he navigated this incredibly complex era under the Mughal Empire.
Yeah, we'll explore how his unwavering commitment to Islamic orthodoxy through strategic, intellectual, and spiritual efforts left this indelible mark that frankly still resonates centuries later.
And what's really important for you, our listener, is that this isn't just about historical facts.
No, not at all.
This is a powerful case study in how intellectual and spiritual movements can define and fiercely defend identity when faced with overwhelming cultural pressures.
It offers profound insights into the enduring power of conviction, which is something, we can all relate to even in our own world today.
Definitely. So to truly understand Sirhindi's impact, we first need to set the scene. Let's explore the man and his times and the vibrant yet volatile Mughal stage he operated on.
Okay, so Sirhindi, also known by titles like Imam Rabbani, and as you mentioned, Mujadidi al-Fithani, the reviver of the second millennium.
Quite a title.
It is. He was born May 26, 1564, in Sirhind, Punjab, which is in modern-day India.
And our sources mention his ancestry claims.
Yes, apparently he claimed descent from Umar, the second of the Rashidun caliphs, the rightly guided caliphs,
Right.
who led the Muslim community right after Prophet Muhammad, and also from the Sufi saint Baba Farid.
So that lineage would have given him significant religious credibility right from the start.
Absolutely. And he had quite the scholarly background. Received a rigorous early education, memorizing the Quran, delving deep into Islamic law, the Prophet Muhammad's biography, history. It really set a formidable intellectual foundation.
And then his Sufi path.
Well, interestingly, he joined the Naqshbandi order, a prominent Sufi spiritual lineage, at the relatively mature age of 36 through Khwaja Baki Billah. And he quickly became a leading master. His deputies then spread the order's influence throughout the Mughal Empire, establishing this broad network.
So clearly a figure of intellectual and spiritual weight. Given that stature, it's crucial to understand the Mughal context he was operating in. What exactly was Emperor Akbar doing religiously at that time?
Right, Akbar reigned from 1542 to 1605. And he started out quite religious, apparently.
But then pivoted.
Significantly, what stands out in our sources is just how far Akbar went. He adopted policies like Suli-Kul,
Witching.
peace with all religions. But then in 1581, he introduced something called Dini Ilahi.
The divine faith.
Exactly. And this Dini Ilahi is described as, well, an abstract, kind of an unequivocal shape of Tawhidi Wujudi, or unity of being.
Okay, unity of being.
But it incorporated beliefs from Zoroastrianism, Jainism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and only a nominal theory of Islamic Tawhid, God's absolute oneness.
Wow. It's a blend.
A radical blend. Some sources even labeled it mutasufana, like immature mystical Unitarianism, particularly with Zoroastrian influences. It was a real departure from traditional Islamic governance, aiming for some kind of universal religion.
And beyond the philosophy, how did these policies translate into, real-world cultural interventions? What tangible changes were people experiencing?
Well, these weren't just minor tweaks. For someone like Sirhindi, each policy felt like a direct assault on the foundations of Muslim distinctiveness.
How so?
Akbar prohibited cow slaughter, for instance, especially on Islamic festivals, which was Ironic because sources say he permitted gambling.
Right.
He waived the jizya tax, the traditional poll tax on non-Muslims in Islamic states. He allowed interfaith marriages. And crucially, he significantly reduced the role of Islamic scholars, the ulema, and Sufi masters, the mashaykhs, in state affairs.
So massive shifts challenging established norms. I can imagine this created quite a stir.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The sources highlight the Ibadat Khana debates. These were gatherings where scholars of different faiths debated.
Sounds civilized.
Not always. Imagine a room where war of words was the norm, with participants openly calling each other kafir, infidel, or heretic.
Intense.
Very. And from Sirhindi's perspective, the problem was crystal clear. These policies were actively diluting Islamic principles.
Threatening Tawhid.
Exactly. Threatening Islamic monotheism, disrupting Muslim religious coherence, and encouraging the adoption of what he saw as un-Islamic customs. He perceived a direct threat to the distinct identity of the Muslim community, feeling it was, on the brink of being absorbed.
It sounds like fertile ground for an intellectual battle, which takes us perfectly into our second segment. Sirhindi's intellectual battleground philosophy, Sharia, and Sufism.
Right.
He became this staunch champion of orthodoxy and Sharia. What was his core belief here, and how did he push for it?
His core belief really demanded unwavering devotion to Islamic law, the Sharia, and the Prophet's practice, the Sunnah.
Okay.
Following both their explicit rules and underlying principles meticulously in every sphere of life, he strongly condemned innovations, bid'ah.
Things not in the Sunnah.
Exactly. Rituals and practices not documented there. He specifically targeted things like annual Prophet anniversaries, Sufi whirling, even prostrating towards the ruler, sujud. He saw those as forbidden.
But he wasn't against all reasoning within the law.
That's a key point. No, he personally accepted and defended the use of ijtihad, independent reasoning, and qiyas, analogical reasoning, in Islamic jurisprudence, or fiqh. He argued these were legitimate tools within the framework of Sharia, not forbidden innovations themselves.
So, not just rejection. He had a very clear methodology for societal reform, too. Our sources mention he believed society could be reformed by conveying his thoughts to 6 specific elements.
Yeah, it's quite strategic.
Non-governmental influential classes, imperial courts, the king himself, traditional scholars, those he deemed heretics and ignorant Sufis, and finally, liberal scholars.
It's incredibly comprehensive, targeting all levels of society and power. Shows his strategic mind.
Definitely. But what's particularly striking is his profound philosophical challenge to a really pervasive mystical philosophy of the time, wadat al-wujud.
The oneness of being, often interpreted as pantheism.
Right. And he strongly opposed it.
Vigorously. He argued it was incompatible with Islam, even suggesting it was a component of Hinduism. He famously declared that God is never united with anything and nothing can be united with God. Very clear stance.
And he didn't just critique, he offered an alternative, didn't he? What did he propose instead?
Yes, he advanced the notion of wada ash-shuhud.
Oneness of appearance.
Right. In this view, the experience of unity between God and creation is purely subjective. It happens only in the Sufi's mind.
So, less about God being in everything.
And more about the spiritual seeker perceiving God's oneness everywhere. A powerful experience, yes, but ultimately subjective.
Okay.
He saw this as a preliminary step to absolute truth and considered it superior because it preserved God's transcendence while still acknowledging that spiritual experience.
Interesting distinction. And he rejected other philosophical ideas, too.
Oh, yes. Ideas rooted in Greek philosophy, interpreting the Quran using philosophical methods. He wasn't having it. Also opposed metempsychosis, the migration of the soul. Saw it as fundamentally un-Islamic.
So he was truly trying to reform Sufism itself, not just critiquing others.
Absolutely. He criticized contemporary Sufis for neglecting Sharia. He even branded those who abandoned it as apostates.
Strong words.
Very. He really emphasized the interdependence of both the Sufi path and Sharia, and challenged specific practices, like khalwa, that solitary spiritual retreat. He called it a heresy because, he argued, it wasn't practiced by the early Muslims.
This really highlights his commitment to an integrated approach. Spiritual experience had to be grounded in Islamic law.
For Sirhindi, Sharia was the bedrock for everything, including the Sufi path. No compromise there.
What stands out here is how Sirhindi chose his battles and how he fought them. He didn't lead open revolts.
No, that wasn't his method.
Let's move into our third segment, a quiet campaign with loud impact influencing the Mughal court. Our sources reveal he engaged in this quiet but effective campaign through hundreds of letters, the Maktubat.
Exactly. These weren't just personal notes. They were highly strategic communications, very calculated.
Who is he writing to?
He sent these Maktubat to disciples, certainly, but also to powerful Mughal nobles names like Sheikh Farid Bukhari, Sheikh Farid Murtaza Khan, Kandi Jahan, Sadri Jahan come up.
High-level connections.
Absolutely. And even at times directly to Emperor Akbar himself. His objectives were multi-layered. Denouncing Hindu figures in government, trying to influence key advisors like Abul Fazl,
Right.
gathering support to reverse Akbar's syncretic policies, and directly convincing the emperor on religious issues. It was a sophisticated, behind-the-scenes lobbying effort.
And his influence wasn't just theological, was it? The sources indicate he even played a role in Jahangir's succession.
He did. This shows how effective influence from within the system could be. He strategically advised his disciple, Sheikh Farid Bukhari, to support Jahangir.
Okay.
And the Orthodox faction, in turn, successfully extracted a promise from Jahangir: support their cause if he succeeded Akbar.
That's direct political intervention, albeit quiet.
And it paid dividends. But it didn't mean he avoided all confrontation, even with Jahangir.
No. What happened there?
Well, under Emperor Jahangir, who our sources tell us admired a Vaishnavite ascetic, interestingly, Sirhindi was actually imprisoned in 1618.
Imprisoned? Wow.
Yeah, he was later released, but then imprisoned again in 1622, reportedly due to the jealousy of nobles over his immense popularity. Spent a year in Gwalior prison.
But he was eventually vindicated.
Yes. After his release, he accompanied Emperor Jahangir's entourage to the Deccan Plateau, and his efforts truly started to bear fruit then.
So what were the concrete results? What policy shifts did Sirhindi actually manage to influence under Jahangir after all that?
He successfully influenced Jahangir to implement some significant policy shifts. He demanded the abolition of sajida, that prostration before the emperor.
Which he saw as un-Islamic.
Correct. He also pushed for permission for cow slaughter again, an end to other religious innovations he disliked, and the restoration of the offices of Qadi, the Islamic judges, and Itisab officials responsible for public morals, plus advocating for renovating or rebuilding demolished mosques.
And Jahangir agreed.
A royal decree was issued. It marked a clear change in direction for the empire, a definite move back towards orthodoxy.
And the sources detail some really visible changes that followed, showing the practical impact.
They do. Jahangir started reversing policies Sirhindi had criticized, like lifting marriage age limits, reviving the Hijra methodology, the Islamic calendar.
Okay.
During the conquest of Kangra, apparently with Sirhindi present, idols were broken, a cow was slaughtered, the khutbah, the Friday sermon, was read, other Islamic rituals performed.
Quite a statement.
A huge statement. Mosques were reportedly found full of worshippers, Quran and Hadith teachings were exalted, Ramadan and Eid celebrations fully observed. Even the Mohammedan confession of faith on the coins was restored.
That's a profound shift back. Connecting this to the bigger picture, it really shows the immense power of persistent, principled advocacy, even from outside the direct corridors of power.
Absolutely. Sirhindi's influence transformed state policy and religious practice, moved the empire away from Akbar's syncretism towards a more recognizably orthodox Islamic framework.
Which brings us to a truly broad and significant aspect, the far-reaching impact. Segment 4, the far-reaching legacy shaping identity and future movements. His influence extended far beyond his own lifetime, didn't it?
Oh, definitely. This is where his legacy truly blossoms.
Yeah.
His son, Sheikh Masum, actually tutored the young Prince Aurangzeb.
The future emperor.
Exactly. And later supported Aurangzeb during the Mughal succession conflict. That mentorship was pivotal.
How so?
Many historians note that Sirhindi's puritanical thought directly inspired Emperor Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb later issued ordinances to restore Orthodox Islam, imposed the jizya tax on non-believers again,
Right.
and banned non-Islamic practices, court music, festivals like Nowruz, the Persian New Year.
A significant reversal.
A major one. It's important to acknowledge Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb's father, also played a role in rolling back Akbar's policies. But Aurangzeb really took it much further, arguably influenced by this Sirhindi ideological line.
Shows a clear ideological thread running through subsequent generations. And his followers clearly recognized his impact. That title, Mujaddid-e-Alfithani, Reviver of the Second Millennium.
A powerful acknowledgement. And Muhammad Iqbal, the famous Islamic politician and philosopher, much later called him the guardian of the community for his role in preserving Islamic identity.
High praise. What's intriguing here is how many historians see him as a pioneer of Islamic reformism, almost like Salafism, but in 17th century India.
Yeah, it's an interesting comparison. His views have been likened to prominent Orthodox figures like Ibn Taymiyyah or Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab, the founder of Wahhabism,
Okay.
and Muhammad ibn Ali al-Sanusi, all because of his strong Orthodox stance and his fierce opposition to religious syncretism.
And he influenced others closer to his own time.
Yes. He's also credited with influencing Shah Waliullah Delhi, who was a major figure in reviving Hadith science, the study of the Prophet Muhammad's sayings and actions in northern India.
So providing a foundation for later revivalist movements.
Exactly. His ideas weren't just confined to his immediate impact. They shaped the very trajectory of Muslim thought in the subcontinent for centuries.
And in a very significant way, he's credited with an early formulation of what would later become the two-nation theory.
That's a major point in the sources.
What exactly was this concept he's associated with?
Well, the sources show Sirhindi wrote that Muslims and Hindus fundamentally differ in belief, practice, and worldview.
Okay.
And crucially, that Islamic governance must reflect the will of the Quran, not a compromise between conflicting traditions.
So linking religious identity directly to political structure.
Precisely. This laid the groundwork, conceptually at least, for the notion that religious identity required distinct political expression. An idea that obviously became incredibly significant centuries later in the push for a separate Muslim state.
Now, we also need to acknowledge, as documented in our sources, that some of his views were controversial, especially concerning other religious or sectarian groups.
Yes, and it's crucial we report these impartially, just as they appear in the materials provided.
Understood.
For example, Sirhindi wrote a treatise, Rad Arawafis, justifying the execution of Shia nobles.
On what grounds?
He argued that cursing the first three caliphs and Muhammad's wives warranted oppression, destruction of their buildings, confiscation of property. He stated that those bearing malice against the Prophet's companions are kafirs in the Quran.
Strong condemnation. And towards Sikhs.
The sources also indicate hostility there. In one of his letters, Maktubat 193, he reportedly cheered the execution of the accused kafir of Goindwal, calling it a meritorious act for the Muslims, and stated that levying jizya on them was intended to be humiliating and insulting. These are documented aspects of his stance, reflecting the rigor of his orthodox position and, well, the intense religious climate of the era.
Understood. Presenting that as documented. Beyond these specific views, though, his lasting scholarly contributions are undeniable.
Absolutely. His Maktubat, those hundreds of letters, are a major body of work, at least 60 different kinds delivered to notables, officials, sheikhs, a huge corpus.
And other works?
He wrote commentary on Sahih al-Tirmidhi, a major hadith collection. And some of his works were even compiled into the Fatawa Alamgiri, that major legal compilation commissioned by Emperor Aurangzeb.
So his scholarly output wasn't just theoretical, it was an active tool in his campaign for reform.
Absolutely, influencing both spiritual and political spheres, cementing his place as a truly foundational figure.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for us? We've seen how Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi, through this potent combination of rigorous scholarship, spiritual discipline, and strategic influence, became a truly pivotal figure in South Asian Islamic history.
He emerged as this unyielding defender of orthodoxy, pushing back hard against the syncretic policies of his time, and advocating for an unwavering return to the foundational principles of Islam.
His actions profoundly influenced the trajectory of the Mughal Empire's religious policies, didn't they?
Hugely. Inspired later reform movements, contributed to an ideological framework that would shape Muslim identity and political thought for centuries. He essentially provided a clear, distinct path for Muslim identity in a period of great religious and cultural flux.
And as we close out this deep dive, here's something for you to consider. How do the intellectual battles fought in one era, seemingly abstract or localized, continue to define collective identity and influence political outcomes across vastly different times and contexts?
That's a powerful question.
Sirhindi's deep dive into Islamic orthodoxy in 17th century India reminds us that the quest for identity and authentic belief is this powerful, persistent force. A force that can carve new paths through the currents of history, leaving legacies that far outlast their immediate circumstances.